Hello, and welcome to Smash Writing. We are inching so close, second to last movie, and yet another Hell Priest has entered the fray with Hellraiser Judgement. Feels kind of weird doing this without Wesker, but we'll push through. I'll push through. So let's not keep us waiting anymore. Let's dive into Hellraiser Judgement, shall we? This movie kicks off with uh, the Hell Priest, and we meet another demonic figure called the Auditor. They're discussing the problems they've been having. See, in this time of age, lust and depravity are up, morality is down, but all other desires for lust can be found electronically nowadays, and nobody wants to play with a wooden puzzle box. So they concoct a new plan. Let's see if you can follow this. So this guy, Watkins, gets a letter inviting him to get his reward at this leads to a shoddy house, and he gets knocked out and he wakes up tied to a wheelchair. And they made him confess to one of his sins. He lured a child somewhere. And while he's being given this, he's telling the story, the auditor is typing it up. An assessor is brought in then. Now he douses the papers with tears of children, eats it, throws it up in a tube, which goes to three naked ladies who stick their hands in the vomit. They render a verdict of guilty. Then he's said to be cleansed from the insides. And then a surgeon is brought in, and it's a big guy with a little person on the back, and a gimp suit who cuts him to bits. That is the process now. After a brief title sequence, we jump into the movie with this blonde woman showing up to her apartment drunk. All of her candles are on when there's someone in her house. All the candles are lit. She thinks it's this guy named Josh that she's been trying to break up with. And she thinks that until someone whacks her in the face and takes her out. And we meet two detectives, an old detective and a younger, well, appear to be an old detective and a young detective, named Sean and David. Sean is the older one, David is the younger one. And they're on their way to this crime scene. The woman's name is Crystal. And then we meet another detective woman named Christine, I believe her name was. I'll call her Christine. And then they're debating about whether or not is this the work of a serial killer called the Preceptor, right up until they realize there's something moving in her stomach, and it is her little dog. Which chalks it up to the Preceptor, because they weren't too sure because of the fact that the Preceptor tends to be more shocking in his crimes. And he's very much goes along the Ten Commandments line, and it's very Seven-esque. And during this, they were able to link all these kills back to the Watkins guy, so they go to his apartment, it's empty, and they find the envelope. Oh, David and Christine are investigating a little bit while Sean has an idea, so he goes back to the apartment and he finds the address and leads him to the shoddy house, and he's knocked out and wakes up tied to this chair. And you get a bit of a fun back and forth between him and the accountant of whether or not the bad Sean has committed in his past is makes him guilty or not. He believes the only person who can judge him and the wicked are God. And meanwhile, the accountant is a little amused by this, especially when they start quoting Bible verses. Because Sean was a soldier, and they had a great little line in that about being all of your bad acts and horrible deeds were permitted by the country, but what were you permitted to feel? I thought that was a good little line there. And the assessor comes in and he starts eating the paperwork and he starts to choke on the paperwork. Like it looks like he's going to be gone. This kind of freaks out the accountant who wants to rush him, and the jury, I guess you want to call these three ladies, they're having a terrible time with this. And he just wants to rush him to the cleaners to get him out of here. But he is actually called away by another woman who's almost angel. She's just kind of like an angel, almost angel-esque, by the bright lights they have going in this room. And she wants him removed. He does not belong here. Release him back into the wild. You got someone you weren't supposed to. So he takes it the accountant doesn't really listen to her and sends him to the cleaners anyways, but he does go talk to the Hell Priest. And in the meantime, Sean escapes the cleaners and with one of the puzzle boxes. This kind of bothers the Hell Priest for a moment until he eats a little bit of the paperwork and he's like, no, no, he'll come back. He will return to us. And we see Sean pick up David and they go back to the shoddy house, but everyone is gone at this point. So he's now starting to freak out. He's starting to hallucinate the Cenobites in his dreams and when he's being intimate with his wife, and that sends him out of the house. Meanwhile, the next day kind of deal, Christine and David are talking, and Christine is here for more than just to help them with their investigation. She's here to evaluate Sean, because they're starting to think he's going off the rails and might actually become a liability if he stays on the force in this case. And Dave's not too sure what to think of this, but he gets a call from Sean's wife. And he lies to her about what he needs to go help Sean with, but Sean is bleeding from the head from a fight he got into the night before. And this upsets David to a large degree, especially when he finds a book with the Book of Tale of Two Cities, and two lines highlighted in it that match the first case that they worked on. And Christine's talking to him like, just keep it to yourself. Me and him will go answer the medical examiner's call, and you stay here and poke around a little bit, see what you find out. So those two go off to the medical examiner, and they find a phone which managed to store her last location, so they know where she was when she died. So they go to the warehouse, and Sean insists on going in this moment. So while they're in there, they find a bunch of pictures. This is clearly the Preceptor's workshop. And the last picture is covered up by a red curtain that she pulls down, and it's a picture of David, and Sean's wife in bed together. And she turns around and gets whacked with the butt of the gun. And he just starts wailing on her head. And meanwhile, Sean gets a text message from her. Oh, no. When David can't get a hold of her, he gets a hold of the medical examiner, who has managed to track him down to this warehouse, not realizing Sean called the wife. So all three of them are now in the room, and Sean has come out as the Preceptor himself. And he has come up with the idea that he's going to have them open the box, and we know this story. He'll trade them for himself. The Hell Priest will get them, he can go free. They open the box, he comes, and he does not want to take this deal. Because they hinted at, with everything that happened with Sean and the weird stuff that happened to the assessor, that maybe Sean was innocent, but no. What was really happening was his crimes were so foul that it choked the assessor. And he does take them, but he has something special in store for Sean, because he's the real Joel. Unfortunately, the angel shows up. He makes a comment about this being the angel of Eden, which I looked up a little bit, and I had to read about the end of this movie. We'll get to that. I think her name is Jophiel, but this angel wants him to let Sean go. Release him now on orders of the Lord. They want him out there doing horrible things, keeping people scared and keeping people in the good grace of God so they don't wander. This upsets the Hell Priest very much, and he's arguing a little bit, but then he stops in a moment and he goes, okay, I'll let him go. And he turns the box, and he sends Sean back into the real world, where Sean is immediately shot by a still alive Christine. And she shoots him over and over until he is gone. And she calls in for help, and then we go back into the plane with the Hell Priest, the angel, and the accountant, and she is pissed. She knew that he did that on purpose, and he's like, yeah, maybe. And she threatens him a little bit more, and he's like, okay then, and he attacks her with the chains and sticks a bunch of his pins into her head and rips her apart. And the accountant's like, that might not be the wisest idea. She's been known to banish people, because she banished Adam and Eve. And he's like, well, what do you think she's going to do to me? And he's like, banish you to mortality, and that's what happens. He gets banished. He becomes human again. And we get a mid-credit scene of the accountant with new victims, and that is Hellraiser Judgement. I'll start with my favorite thing. I think the addition of the auditor and his character was probably one of the best parts of this movie. He had a lot of great little lines, especially when he was talking to Watkins, and he had the line of, "Pain is a currency to me, and I can spend some on you if you wish." His delivery, his manner, his demeanor, was excellent and well done. The little twist with the Preceptor got me. I thought for sure it was going to be David and he was framing Sean. That was a good little twist, depending on how invested you were with that story. Because, again, you go into a Hellraiser movie, you really want to see the Hell Priest and the Cenobites, and they kind of like try to balance both of these, but by balancing both of them, you don't really get too invested into either one of them, so you're just like, oh okay. So it was well done, little swap there, but it's very much a take or leave kind of deal. I was fine with it, but I could see why others would not be. Then you actually have, I feel like they could have done a whole lot more by adding an angel into this franchise, because we've never seen that happen. And I didn't even like the fact that they were dark, twisted angel kind of deal. Like, oh, well, yeah, we know he's evil, and he will be judged for it in time. But right now, he's good for the book here, so we want him out there. I like that idea of a dark angel. I feel like we only got her for 2 scenes. We could have done a little bit more with her, and I think that would have been a lot more fun. Especially since I think she did have good chemistry with Paul T. Taylor, who played Hell Priest in this movie. Those two had a good back and forth. Probably we could do more with that. What really did annoy me about this show was that they really glossed over the box. Because it felt like they did. We have no idea what to do with this box. We really don't want to deal with it. But by not dealing with it, you make this convoluted thing where they don't even have to try anymore. They're just like, alright, that guy's a bastard. Just send him send him a letter, invite him. We got you. That does take away from the mystique of the box. And the box is pretty big with this franchise. Probably it's up there with, the Hell Priest himself. It's the Hell Priest and then the box. So, by just having it as more decoration, just kind of like, that's kind of sucky. Because how are you any different from any other the killers in these movies? Paul T. Taylor, I was about 50-50 on him. I thought he did much better than the last guy who tried this. He had a better look to him. His voice was, but it came and went. But for the most part, he did a pretty good job. At times with this movie, it did seem like Hellraiser's always been overboard on the gore. A ton of gore. But it always seemed to work. It was never vile. This movie went vile for vile's sakes. It's just to be gross. The whole thing with the vomit stuff really didn't have to be here. Why did you have 3? I feel like the 3 naked ladies were probably something to do with like the fates or something. It feels like it's something biblical going on here with the 3 of them being the judges. It's going over my head. I can't piece it together, but I feel like that was largely unnecessary. Why are they putting their hands in puke? Again, it was just to be gross. And largely not needed. Like, the gore was great, but then you pushed the line a little bit too much. And then there's the ending of this movie with what happened to the Hell Priest. What happened to the Hell Priest was he became human, but at the same time, why? Why would you do this? Why would you what's the deal with the angel? Like, there should have been more fleshed out here with him and the angel. Like I said, and you could have done that if you would have put more time with him and the angel together. You could have fleshed this story out a little bit more and made the ending hit a little bit more. But all in all, despite my complaints, this movie hit a lot of good. A lot. It did better than the negatives I'm talking about. And in the end, I'm gonna give this a B. It had great gore. The actors in it, for the most part, did a great job. It was a vast improvement on the Hell Priest. I like the addition of the Dark Angel being brought into it. They did a lot of the right notes in this movie. So, final grade will be a B, and we go in to the last movie. The retelling or remake, depending on whatever you want to call it, will be next up. So with that, have a good day. Bye bye.